So John, yeah, tell us a little bit about the Milk Commission and the meeting that you had attended the other day.
So I actually don't, or just didn't know much about the Milk Commission, and I just looked it up. So there's something at the agency. They sort of host a Milk Commission, which was started by Governor Douglas to enhance and stabilize the dairy industry in Vermont. And there are 9 members who were drawn from, one from the House, one from the Senate, which is Senator Starr. The agency, I think the secretary and one other member, who in this case is Laura Ginsburg, who recently ran the Dairy Innovation Center and now is moving into Diane Bothfeld's job. There's some farmer representatives, there's some co-op representatives, dairy processor representatives, and then a couple representatives from the sort of not specifically in the industry, but who know a lot about it. So Alan Reitz, who's the general manager of the Hanover Co-op, he said it was the second biggest co-op in the United States, food co-op, $88 million or so sales. He just joined. And so he certainly knows a lot about dairy retail. And there, besides the very sort of simple enhancing and stabilizing the dairy industry, I think they've been somewhat dormant in the last, certainly over COVID, but even before that, I think there was some criticism of what their charge was. And I ended up there, I think, and Senator Starr, because we were on the General Assembly's dairy task force to look into a potential tier payment for dairy farmers, similar to, there are a couple other states like Maine, I think Oregon might have, California has one. And that dairy task force proposed some legislation to the Milk Commission. And if it went forward, it would use the Milk Commission's authority to run that program. But where that's going to go, I don't know. So yesterday, or 2 days ago, the Milk Commission, the main subject was if there were any recommendations for our DC group, the 2 senators and a representative, if there was anything the commission wanted to add to recommendations to the USDA Farm Bill. So that's mostly what we talked about, and our delegation had representatives there, some of who we've seen in here. So some of the things, and it's just interesting also listening to the sort of farm discussion similar to what we have, but at the federal level, they're all, some things we touch base with, but don't have a lot of power over. So they talked about the DMC, reauthorizing that, SNAP, protecting that, because I think now with the Republican in charge of the House, there's a move to cut SNAP dollars by a lot. And we heard that on the
even more than it's
security guy.
More than the proposed cuts.
More than wow.
Well, I don't know, right, from what we've heard from John Sales and there are, I think there's some enthusiasm there to really chop SNAP up. We talked about CREP, which is another USDA program.
Can you say that again?
CREP, I think it's CREP. It's about, I think it's mostly money for buffer zones on farms.
Oh, okay.
Another grant program, and CSP funds, which that's the bucket of funds that the PS working group and soil health group recommended we use those funds for that PS program. So all this came up because there's a Friday deadline for the recommendations for the Farm Bill, and so I thought our committee and maybe Senate Ag, if there are any federally, if we have any recommendations on a sort of federal scale, we might want to write a joint letter to the delegation. which they'd pass on, because like Senator Welch is, as he said, on the ag committee. They talked about plant-based beverages, and this is where Alan Reese from the co-op said, Hanover Co-op said that there's something called Wonder Milk, which is a plant-based milk coming from Danone.
From where?
Danone, which is.
Oh, Dan, like the yogurt out.
Owns. What do they own?
Horizons.
Right. The WIC program, they potentially some people wanna pull milk from the WIC program. Yeah.
Why?
Does it probably cost money?
Is it at the federal level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We learned all the stuff on school nutrition actually isn't part of the USDA Farm Bill. It's on its own track. It's like every couple of years, supposedly it's updated, but we talked a lot about that for getting whole milk in schools. And I guess the federal nutritionists still are working on reducing sodium and fats. And so it's hard to push whole milk in schools when the
Because of the fat content.
right, even though it's good fat.
Right.
We talked about, I mean, just sort of mechanical things like certainly in our universal school meals, I don't know if we talked about this, but it makes sense that they said if you are an 18-year-old football player or you're a 5-year-old, you each get a little 8-ounce carton of milk for lunch, and it makes no sense at all. Like, why can't teenagers who need a lot of calories, have 3 milks? And that would make sense for us in Vermont if we want to switch over to milk bags like they have more in colleges, where you can just have a glass and have as much as you want. We should think about that. Maybe things like some programs I haven't heard about. There's something called the Dairy Pride Act. There's something called Dairy Donation Program. I think these are some of their federal programs, and some are sort of federal partnerships maybe with industry, the big dairy industry, as far as like donations, sort of like what's the Ben and Jerry's thing called?
Milk with dignity?
What is it?
Milk with dignity?
I think there's
Dairy
some
Pride is the plant. Is
based.
plant making, yeah, I think it's Welch's,
Oh, to
to ban plant-based
Right.
beverages from.
With labeling,
something
though.
like
It's
that.
not about gender stuff. Probably.
no. It's probably
No, it's not Core Dairy Farmers.
Laura Ginsburg said she had read somewhere, I think it was for SNAP, but that if
You
you
laugh.
bought goat's milk, there's something called Meyenberg Dairy, which I think is a big California goat dairy. Anybody heard of it? That was the only brand you could buy to get reimbursed for.
Wow.
She was like, this makes no sense, moving on. So that was pretty much it. We meet once a month. And like I said, if as a committee, we want to send any recommendations to our delegation, this would be the week to do it.
Fantastic. It sounds like you're gonna learn a lot there.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's I think a difficult place to get much done in some ways, because the agency is somewhat controlling the agenda and what questions to ask. I mean, Bobby Starr and I were the ones asking the questions, mostly everybody else was sort of
Is the margin protection, is that in the Farm Bill or is that a separate,
I think it's separate.
so the whole, having an organic?
Oh, they talked about organic dairy, that they're doing something on that, but it's even slower than we moved. So once again, it's
Okay.
potentially there's gonna be some money there, but it's gonna be late fall or something like that.
Yeah.
And the DMC, same thing. I mean, I guess conventional milk's below 20 now.
Yeah, it's dropping like a rock, I guess.
Yeah. And so,
Was expected, but
right.
doesn't make it any easier.
And that would be a small help to even organic dairy farmers, because if conventional dairy kicks in and they get to access some of that, then
That's right.
organic dairy gets some of that too. But the chances of somebody spoke about, I guess it was Senator Welch's, one of his people said that to do an organic DMC type program, they're running into all sorts of hurdles because I think the scale and inputs in organic dairy are so different that they can't agree on.
Yeah.
Or conventional, it's pretty much you put in this much, you get this much, where
Yeah.
organic dairy is a far greater equation.
So from one organic dairy to another, there's
Exactly,
not
so agreeing on what inputs should be tracked and the final prices for it, probably more similar, but I think it's, if a Texas organic farm has 10,000 cows, it's a lot different than 100 organic cows in Vermont. Their inputs are gonna be a lot different.
Style, like with conventional, it's pretty much you feed, this concentrates max out that corn and you feed milk, whereas organic it runs the gamut from 0 grain to
Right,
a lot of
grass
grain, and if you're running a margin on inputs, it's very different for different farms, and then, I can see where it would be a tough.
You think they could almost go from just the, the milk, the mailbox price and just add $2 or $3 or whatever to that would be
Yeah.
probably a better thing for organic farmers than nothing.
So I think that we could, as a committee, if we're interested, put together a letter or draft ideas for a letter and then see whether, I don't know whether you talked about this with Senator Starr, but see whether the Senate committee is doing something.
Right.
If they happen to be identical, then we could do a joint letter, but.
Or if they just want to sign on. But
Yes,
This
right.
is really going to be a milk commission letter, which, sort of is under the agency's purview.
So the commission is doing a letter as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I could just think of one thing that we've all spoken about that really didn't go very far, but the idea of Vermont milk being sold to Vermont schools. And I'm not sure how that, would be structured in a letter, but it's been talked about.
Well, I think that the way to get at that is to get at the things that are actually preventing it, which are the whole milk and the pack and the processing, right?
Yes.
And at the federal level, as you just mentioned, the Farm Bill the Farm Bill isn't a vehicle that addresses what the requirements are.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah,
But the rules are open right now, the nutrition for public comment.
I think they are, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I think we heard there was also a deadline coming up early April, maybe, to comment on that.
Right,
So
yeah.
we can do that too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so other than that, and you're right, we have, had talked about that a bit. Are there other items and maybe John, if there are things that the commission is working towards, that's great. We can echo those, but it's going to be focused on milk presumably. So there are other areas.
Even just support for things like SNAP or WIC, to keep
Yeah.
dairy in there.
Just a question you might know. I think, Rodney, you may have an idea about this too. Are milk prices controlled federally? Yeah.
But it's so complicated, it's unbelievable.
Okay.
They started in the 30s and there are literally like 3 people in the United States who understand. 2 are dead, right?
Yeah, that's the good, there's 3 people that know about milk prices, 2 are dead and you can't find the other one.
What about milk brokers? That's a total side thing.
Milk brokers?
Yeah, my friend's husband is a milk broker. And I asked him, this was years ago, and I asked him to explain it and he couldn't. So it's sort of
On that
along
line.
those lines. It's like he's trading milk.
Is he dead or missing?
No, I think he's getting divorced.
Because the
No,
price
no.
is so volatile, right? There's probably.
Yeah. So anyway,
But it's, it's somewhat tied to, they split dairy up into these 4 tiers. So like fluid milk's 1
Right.
and things you eat with a spoon.
Like yogurt,
Yogurt,
cottage cheese.
ice cream.
There's cheese.
Then there's cheese, and then there's like dried milk and weird sort of things we send to Mexico. Or dog food and.
things we give to the food shelf.
Yeah, exactly. And what's happened is that less and less Americans are drinking fluid milk, while cheese and yogurts have gone up. And so because the whole program was tied to fluid milk consumption, it's totally sort of the cart following the horse now, and that's why it's really messed up. So there's certainly talk at the federal level of somehow tweaking it, like I guess Senator Gillibrand from New York is, she's chair of one of these, maybe Senate Ag, but, or at least the dairy subcommittee. So she's concerned about this.
John, was there any discussion on the almond or oat milk or those?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think it's
What do you-
already, sort of in
just
federal law, but there's just no enforcement from the USDA or no enthusiasm to
A
enforce.
lot. That's why.
It's in Vermont law too, but
Yeah.
we don't enforce it.
And that like the almond,
What's the labeling?
and so and also not so much in Vermont, but they said there's certain like, the Midwest, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, which have, dairy, but they also have huge soy. And then the far west has a lot of almond industry as well as milk. So these delegations tend to split apart, or they will move on it because they don't want to do battle with Blue Diamond almonds.
So we have till Friday to send a letter.
Yeah, and these next 2 days are gonna be, we won't have a whole lot of committee time. At the same time, we don't have a whole lot of things to schedule for committee time. So we'll be able to have some more conversation, but think about if, when we come back again, if you've got ideas, you can present them in Laura, we can just compile them. I think, you mentioned SNAP and Rick and just support for those programs. I think those seem like.
And this is
no-brainers.
unsolicited, so we should probably touch base with Welch and Bernie and Balance reps again and just say, would you like this, is
Okay,
it
yeah.
helpful, that sort of thing.
We can talk about that, but yeah, let's reach out so that, and we were just clear on the timing and
Right.
what might be helpful and focus on that.
The Dairy Pride Act, just in case anybody's wondering, because it is an acronym, both of those words.
Yes,
It's the Defending Against Imitations and Replacements of Yogurt, Milk and Cheese to promote regular intake of dairy every day.
Wow.
That's a mouthful.
every day.
Somebody had a Scrabble word out when they came up with that one.
It's all capital.
Promote regular intake of dairy
Promote.
every
Every
day.
day.
Yogurt, it's the Y.
Yeah.
Yogurt is the why milk and cheese fall under.
That's funny.
Okay,
Mr. Representative Rice, you amaze me. How you use your telephone knowledge.
these young people.
He can see and he knows how to Google.
What's the status, just because I've had questions about it, of the 9.2, I know I had a couple representatives and even a senator asked me about that they couldn't find it in the budget.
Not in the budget, yeah, definitely not.
It may be coming through in a Senate ag is the kind of,
Yeah, that's what we're being told.
And it's not gonna be 9.2, I'm
Right.
sure, like half of that, it sounds like.
okay.
But I mean, this afternoon here, the budget overview, you won't see that.
Yeah.
I was talking to Anson Tebbets this morning, and he said that $10 million thing got cut to $5 million. So far. Yeah, and just about everything.
So we're actually about to take up an amendment
About
about that, yeah. And Laura, I see, did we get anything from Mike O'Grady?
Yeah, it's not there.
No, I see David Hall, but not. So, yeah, I think we're done with this discussion. And thanks everybody for giving that some thought. We'll follow up.